Greetings. My name is Karen.
And I'm Barry Martin, and our website is luminousself.com.
And we're really glad you're here. Today, we feel it's time to talk about the role of transmissions and activations in the awakening process, and another whole way of looking at the awakening process that is much more focused on cultivating internal capacities in consciousness.
Transmissions and activations are very popular these days because they are gifts of grace that are coming through, and they're essential at this time on the planet because things are speeding up. So, the long process that some people did, it took lifetimes, decades, whatever, is being compressed. And these transmissions of grace can definitely create kind of like time shortening miracles that can happen.
Mhm.
However, they are not a substitute for the genuine, authentic inner journey, which is about connecting with the seed of the divinity that is your true nature in the core of your being and developing an ongoing, deepening communion with that as it sprouts and unfolds all that you truly are as an aspect of God, all the divine qualities, characteristics, and capacities that make you a fully self-realized divine being. Transmissions cannot do that for you.
They can't give you what you already are, and they can't really expand your awareness of your internal core.
The journey to be in communion with that and be in this synergistic unfoldment as this soul lotus in you opens up, and it is your guru. It is what guides the path. It knows exactly what you need to experience. There's no substitute from that. There's nothing outside that knows that or can provide or give you the total essence of your own divinity, except communion, identifying communion, merging into it and becoming it. That is a one-on-one you and your God self experience.
In the last few months, we've worked with a lot of people, a lot of awakening souls who have received many, many transmissions during the last few years, let's say, perhaps a year, perhaps 3 or 4 years. They've been on a spiritual awakening path, and they've found that they're very drawn to receiving these transmissions. And we've really enjoyed working with all of these people because the head soul center is very awake, open, and available in these beings. They've had tremendous head center awakenings that not only happen here, but go way up and out into everything. And that's a real joy. It makes the rest of the process much more easy for these beings. It makes it easier to drop into the sacred space within their being and to recognize the organizing function and the organizing center that we each have within us, which is the center of who we really are, the true eternal self, that spark of the one that lives inside of each one of us. But what we found is that I'm guessing here, I'm making a surmise that for a lot of beings that are drawn to the path of transmissions, it's happening from up here. It's happening from the brain and the mind. It's not happening from a deeper space of knowing within them. And so what happens is a lot of people can adopt the attitude that if a little is good, a lot is better. And we have run across various people in our work recently who have gotten so many transmissions that they've been kind of pulled out of who they really are. It's been askew for them in their awakening process that now requires the balance of dropping in and of grounding and stabilizing all of that high light that they have accessed and all of those multidimensional expanded states and levels of being that they have experienced.
It wasn't the transmissions were wrong or bad or
Right.
in any way. It was their relationship to them and what was guiding their process of using or accessing the transmissions. And there's only one thing that knows our divine unfoldment, and that's the divine in the core of our being, our true self. When we're coming from that place and coming from the knowing and understands everything about us, past, present, and future, it will guide us when a transmission is appropriate, when we need to do deep inner work, when we need time off to go out and play in nature. We're talking about an integral awakening, a fully integrated awakening that embodies all these aspects, the transcendent into the absolute, realizing us as souls, as divine God beings in the human experience, all is one integrated awakening, so that all aspects, transcendent, immanent, matter, spirit, come together in a unified experience of who and what we are.
Yeah, what we found over the years we've worked with people is that at various times within our awakening process, we each experience moments of activation. And activation is what transmissions deliver. And in transmissions, I might also include very powerful meditations that also convey energies to the people that are watching or participating in the meditations. So activation is one aspect and a super important aspect of every awakening journey. But there are other aspects. And what can happen is when the focus is all on activation, after a while, the system goes, wait a minute, I'm getting so much input, I don't have any place for the stuff to land. It's becoming too much. I'm going on tilt. And so that's a point when we've met a few beings that had so much light and energy and consciousness that was suddenly pouring into their system that they reached the point of, wow, there's just no more room for anything else to come in.
Yeah, it might be worth to take a moment to talk about the transformational cycle. There's no way to avoid it. The first thing is that activation. We get a light comes in, a higher level of consciousness comes in, and it lands in us and then starts to percolate down into our subtle body, into our chakras. And then everything within us that isn't of that frequency, and it's probably going to be a much higher frequency, is going to start to come to the surface. So it can, because it's not of that higher frequency, it needs to come up to be redeemed, transformed, so that that light can transform it, integrate it, and become embodied. So that second part is the process of purification, of taking the vertical dive down into our lower chakras and looking at all these things that need to be redeemed. So purification, clearing all that, that's phase number 2. When we're done with that, and when the light has been received, purification process is complete, then there's the integration process. This stuff needs to be embodied fully. That means our physical body needs to go through purification too. It may need to change our diet, do more yoga, all kinds of different things, clear more stuff out of the physical level. We may need modalities, to healing modalities to help the body. Plus, because our outer world is definitely a mirror projection of our inner state of being, if we've raised our frequency, we're no longer operating at the frequency that the world we had created before exists in. So that means things like relationships, jobs, you name it, all of a sudden they go, wow, this doesn't feel so good anymore. This does not resonate. So the integration process is taking the time needed to let the outer world that we've created in that previous state of consciousness shift and morph into the expression of where we are now. When that happens, and when we're grounded in this new level, then the cycle can start again. Okay, more light, bring more in. The error that most of us make, I made it strategically and powerfully in my life. I can speak to it. It's the more is better of that light. It's wonderful when that light hits us. It's wonderful when it lifts us up out of pain and suffering and duality, and we feel light and bliss. Who doesn't want that? Everybody does. And in fact, that is a crucial and essential part of this journey, is embodying more, connecting with more of that and bringing it in. But we can't live in that light and bliss as long as we're in a third dimensional body, living as a soul in this human experience. It just doesn't work. We'll just be up there in that light, and it'll do a bigger and bigger overcharge in our upper chakras and won't easily come down. If we do that long enough, that's when people have big explosions of darkness and shadow stuff and dark nights of the soul that come out of them, because they get so imbalanced that the charge in their upper chakras and the lower chakras just get so separated that they may even lose contact of where they are at a human level. They may find they don't connect with people anymore. Their money stuff is all in a mess. They're just not living well at a human level.
And what can happen is that physical dis-ease can be a way that the body is saying, hey, what about me? What happened to the more physical, the more embodied, the more tangible aspects of our being? And if it can't get our attention any other way, the way that it often uses is to develop some kind of a physical state of dis-ease to bring our attention back. It's almost like, to the degree we've walked away from the body, it will yank us back, if need be, to say, hey, this is also an aspect of your being, an aspect that needs to be honored, because the body is, as has often been said in spiritual traditions, the temple or the vessel for the soul, for the true self that we all are. It's the way that the soul is going to move through this embodiment. And so if we care for the body and we include the body as part of our overall perspective on awakening, we're going to find that the journey is much more gentle than if we ignore and deny and push away what the body is trying to get through to us and think that more of the higher energies are better.
Now, there are meditations and transmissions and activations that aren't just about high light. There's some that really activate the heart center. There's some that can activate the belly center, and they can be very balancing. So it's not to say that there isn't a time and place and we're in a really expanded highlight experience, that a transmission that activates lower chakras and lower centers can't be really helpful. They are. Matter of fact, we have one called Ilahinor that's very helpful for when people get an overcharge in their upper chakras.
Yeah, we began working with that about 20 years ago after we both experienced something called the Diksha. And then the following year that we experienced the Diksha, we found it to be such a powerful catalyst for awakening, and it was a transmission, that we went back to India to receive the ability to transmit the Diksha. So we've been around transmissions for quite a while. It's not a new aspect of our awakening journey. And we have utmost respect for what can happen through transmissions. So we're not at all here to badmouth transmissions
No.
or say that it's a mistake to go near them.
No.
Not at all. But if we're centered here, we will know from our own inner compass when the transmission is appropriate, as Barry said, how much of it is appropriate, and what else is needed as integral parts of the awakening journey.
Realization is to have a conscious connection, experience, and communion with what's truth and real in us as our true nature. It's not out there. The transmissions are all the fingers, they say, pointing at the moon. It's in here as our true nature. We already, everything we seek is what we are. If we think we're going to get it from something out there, that's an error in thought.
Yeah.
It's an illusion. All
Mm.
those transmissions can do is point the finger to what we are by removing obstacles in our consciousness to experiencing it. And they're powerful and beautiful and essential for that. But they do not take the place of that inner journey of self realizing it for me, realization, realizing it as me, as what I am, and gaining the mastery over this human experience so that whatever arises, the sign of an awakened being is that no matter what comes up, no matter what they experience, and the human experience will throw one thing after another to show us where we aren't realized. Okay? It does that to point, okay, there's a place that you have not embodied your true nature, to give us the opportunity to become aware of these things and see where we're not able to stay present, aware, focused, and grounded in who we are. A fully realized being is a being that nothing perturbs them. I had a great friend who was with Babaji, my guru, for 4 or 5 years as his attendant. So he got to be with Babaji day and night and saw this being. And he said, never once did he see him react to anything. He got a horse jump up in front of him and raised its hoofs up and was going to pounce on him. Most people would go like that, react. He didn't move an iota because he was so deeply realized in who he was that there was nothing left in him that was separate and that could react because he was realized. And in fact, what Charles told me is the horse simply stopped the whole process. And Bobby took a step back and everything became peace. It's an extreme example, but think about your own life with all the challenges of living in this material plane with relationships and accidents and healing and all these things. They're all the catalysts to take us deeper into realizing who we are. And only by doing that will we be able to be present with no matter what is asked of us to happen at this level.
Yeah, as we often talk about, it's in our journey and in our approach to awakening, it's all about facing and ultimately embracing whatever is in front of us, whatever's inside of us, whatever's out there that seems to be catalyzing some emotion, some thought, some judgment, some separation, whatever levels of the process are being activated. And so at that moment, it's as though we reach a choice point when we have been triggered. Are we going to go for another external input to try to bypass what is happening? Or are we going to drop inside and realize that, okay, here is another doorway that can carry me deeper into who and what I really am if I can meet this with full consciousness? Or even meet it with whatever consciousness I can get my hands on at that moment. If we begin the process, that's all life needs. Life and the divine will step in and lead us on an impeccable path right through whatever the challenge is to a new level of realization.
And what's really important is here, we're developing a spiritual capacity.
Yeah,
Okay. This is like lifting spiritual weight. Okay. We get strong spiritually. We don't buckle when these things happen
we
to us.
don't let the fear overcome us
Yeah.
so that we won't go near it. So that we'll be so afraid of what we might have to deal with that we do anything to escape and avoid that possibility.
A self-realized being lives in the reality that nothing out there has any truth, power, or reality over me. Period. That's where this takes us.
It really is that simple, and it really is that binary in a sense that, life is going to present us with these choice points all along the way. And that if the choice is made from here, we're going to know what we need to do step by step, moment to moment, to move through whatever seems to be the obstacle in front of us or inside of us. If we become overly reliant on input from without, from other beings, from other techniques, whatever, we're not going to be able to develop that spiritual capacity. And so, bottom line, nobody else can awaken us. Nobody else can do it for us. Awakening is a participatory process. It's a process where we ever more deeply engage more and more levels of ourselves, parts of ourselves, to meet whatever comes and to experience whatever is there.
It is realized in the context of everyday life on this planet. And it's an organic process that exists in that context. It's like there's a spark in the seed in the center of our soul that is the divine essence. And as that spark is like a seed, as that sprouts, and we become more aware of what that essence is, it grows just like a plant. It expands, and all these divine qualities and capacities unfold within us, and we become more realized and more of a self-mastered being. Okay. And as that happens, that plant starts to get deeper roots, a stronger stalk, and it goes and goes and grows and grows and puts out branches and roots, which are all of this, our divine nature unfolding until it finally flowers as a fully realized being. That's an organic process that's lived through in the context of living itself. By communing and allowing this to sprout and unfold in our unity with it from within ourselves. We can't get it from out there. If we think we can force that process with more outer adjuncts, more transmissions, activations, it would be kind of like taking a plant, a seed, and putting it in a hothouse under ideal conditions and just giving it tons of fertilizer, tons of water, and tons of light to say, grow, grow, grow as fast as you can grow. We'll get a leggy plant. A plant would go maybe a very thin stalk, go up, boom, and fall over. Okay? Realization on this plane is about taking every step, moment to moment, to deepen in this, to ground it, to integrate these experiences, to use them as doorways as awakening, like Karen was saying. And as the only experience that can be orchestrated through realization and communion with who and what we really are.
So enjoy the benefits, the gifts, the blessings of transmissions if you feel drawn in that direction.
Absolutely.
And invite them to become a part of you.
Yeah.
That is where you can become an active participant in your own process of awakening and of realizing who you really are.
Hope this is helpful.
Yeah, thanks for being
Yeah.
here. We
Yeah.
wish you well along your journey, and we'd love to hear what your responses to this are in the comments.